you hear me? Okay. Well, I know we still have people coming in. Please find a seat. I'm so happy to see such a great crowd. You're so wonderful to come spend your afternoon with us. My name is Susan Bryant, and I'm the Executive Director of the Pawleys Island Festival of Music and Art. And this is the first time we've done this type of program, which includes history and education about our area, as well as music from our area and from the past and in the present. And we're just thrilled, and you're in for such a large and incredible treat tonight. First, I want to let you know that the bathrooms are open in the church. So you go through those two doors, that right there on the side, and the bathrooms are to the left. There's a men and ladies, and there's several stalls in each. So if you have to make your way that way, just know that they're open. We will have lemonade, water, and we've got so many desserts. Thank you so much to the ladies of Holy Cross Faith Episcopal Church. They made all of these desserts for us, and please just give them a round of applause. I mean, how incredible. They just put on a show, and we've got lots of desserts, so we got to eat them all before you leave, because if not, then I'll have to take them home. Also, thank you to Holy Cross Faith Episcopal Church and Father Will. I mean, we couldn't have had this without this beautiful location and being out here under these beautiful oak trees. And we're here in front of the old parish house, and I think Lee will tell you a little bit more about that later. Also, I could not have done this without Lee Brockington and Steve Williams and Jesse Wilson and Della Perot and Dr. Betty Dees and Bethel AME Church and the Village Group Children's Choir. I mean, they all got together and have planned this program, and I am just overwhelmed with joy that they felt it was important for us to get this message out. A lot of our board members are here tonight. Some of them have tags on them. Please let them know if you enjoyed it so that we can continue to do things like this in the future. And I will talk to you again at the end of the show, so enjoy. Lee Brockington, please come up. The beautiful Lee Brockington, such the great historian. She will tell you everything you need to know.
Hey everybody, it really is special this evening to see you here, to know that you're participating in a different kind of program, a program of men and women of different ages and different colors, different backgrounds, whether it's regionally, educationally. What an opportunity tonight to acknowledge our shared history, our love of music as we spend the evening tonight under these live oaks at this historic spot. And as we begin, we'll open in prayer first by the Reverend Dr. Betty Dees Clark of Bethel AME Church in Georgetown, Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church. The Reverend because she was called and ordained by God. Doctor because she has invested time in education to do the very best she could. Our opening prayer, the Reverend Dr. Betty Dees Clark.
Let us bow our heads, please. Oh God, we pause to acknowledge your divine presence. You have been our help in ages past, and you alone are our hope for years to come. For you are the great I am. You are the God of our past, our present, and our future. We reflect upon and lift up our ancestors who were forcibly taken from Africa, from their families, their tribes, their village, their lands, and were enslaved in this country. At this Juneteenth celebration, we find it as a time of rejoicing. For our hearts are now overwhelmed as we rejoice in our freedom, our salvation, and the presence of each other. Let us all say, amen.
The Waccamaw Neck is a historical area, bounded by the Atlantic Ocean, Winyah Bay, and the Waccamaw River, so named by the Native Americans, Waccamaw, translated as coming and going because of the high tides and the low tides. Those indigenous people hunted and fished, gathered clams and oysters, and later established villages on bluffs, both at Hobcaw and present-day Brookgreen. As people were pushed out by the early 1700s to make way for a new colonial plantation parish called All Saints, plantations were divided as long, narrow strips of property that stretched from the Waccamaw River all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. Especially the riverfront for transportation, for the freshwater swamps converted to rice fields, for fields cleared of valuable timber, and those fields then planted in colonial indigo. But the entire plantation system was based on the enslavement of human beings. Men, women, and children with African roots, religions, music, art, cooking, and agriculture. The success of rice credited to the West Africans. As our guest speaker, Steve Williams, will help us understand this system of slavery and its final end on Juneteenth. It did not end the culture, the shared culture of African Americans on this Waccamaw Neck in Georgetown County, in South Carolina, in the United States of America. We celebrate tonight through words and music those connections and that culture, and how secular lives with popular music merged with the religious lives of the enslaved and the free black population. On this site, in the year 1900, 20 acres of land were donated to the Episcopal Church for the founding of Faith Memorial Mission Church. In 1930, a church named Holy Cross Brookgreen Mission, with its church, its medical clinic, and its school, was merged with Faith Memorial Church and school through the assistance of Archer Huntington from New York to the property with the cooperation of the Reverend William Forsythe, the new minister, called about that time Holy Cross Faith Memorial Episcopal Church, a long name, but historically important to say its entire name, Holy Cross Faith Memorial Episcopal Church, continued to grow as a church and as a school. This building where I'm standing, where you're all viewing, is the parish hall, known simply for many years as Miss Ruby's School, because her leadership for 53 years, Mrs. William Forsythe, the Episcopal minister's wife, but known by so many as Miss Ruby, Ruby Middleton Forsythe. First from kindergarten to 10th grade at its peak with 100 children in a one-room school. The Reverend and Mrs. Forsythe both taught, and today we remember his work and her work, which continued long after his death and until her death in 1992. But the school itself remained open until the year 2000, and in her honor and in her memory, Miss Ruby's Garden, where we sit, was created with art, a bas-relief by noted national artist Frederick Hart on its brick wall just behind where you're seated, Miss Ruby's Garden. Also, an early literacy program called Miss Ruby's Kids was created by two sisters who grew up here, white women who knew Miss Ruby and shared her passion for the need to introduce books, reading, and language to very young children. That nonprofit, Miss Ruby's Kids, is alive and well. Think of the history at this one site, but also on the Waccamaw Neck and in this county. But consider the date and why we are here now in June to hear words and music together. Mr. Steve Williams, a noted educator with his master's in school administration, is here tonight to help us understand Juneteenth. The writer, the poet, the performer, and my friend has published many books to help us understand not only Black history and Black contributions, but the connections that bind us all together. As we explore part one of his presentation, help me welcome Mr. Steve Williams.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Lee, my good friend Lee says writer, performer, so I neglected to tell you guys that we're all going to do the electric slide in a few minutes. So get ready. Okay. When I was a little boy, my dad has said so many times, and I didn't even understand him, but he would use this phrase from the great James Weldon Johnson. You and I know it as the Negro National Anthem, or Lift Every Voice and Sing. But that second verse, my dad said it so many times, it was either his middle name or something. But he would say, Steve, stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to a place from which our foremothers and forefathers sighed. I'm here to talk a little bit about Juneteenth, and I appreciate the opportunity that Lee afforded to me to speak with you. This is a wonderful setting, and I see several friends, Dwayne and Joan and so many others. But I have been asked for 3 times to talk about Juneteenth, which is actually tomorrow. So this I set up for young children, but it can be for old folks too. How about that? It says Juneteenth. Juneteenth is not a holiday. I'm sorry, it's not just a holiday for some. It is a day of remembrance, a day of celebration, and a day of education. It is a remembrance day of one of the darkest chapters in our history of America, a remembrance of the long, hard night of slavery and subjugation. But it is also a day of celebration and a promise of a brighter day. There are celebrations going on all over this country and even in Mexico. You say, Steve, what does Juneteenth have to do with Mexico? Well, you should know that many formerly enslaved people escaped to Florida and intermingled with the Seminoles, so-called Seminole Indians, or Native Americans. And even in Mexico, they celebrate them now. They're called the Black Moscatos. For over 200 years, there was a group of enslaved people who were enslaved by a group of enslavers. And I'm so glad that Lee and Pastor Dr. Clark used the term enslaved. We used to say the term slave, but let me share this with you. No one is born a slave. God never made a slave. You have to be enslaved. They say if we knew better, we would do better. The same reason we change our nomenclature and our language, because once we know better, we talk better. In the same way we say employer and employee, we can say enslaved and enslaver, because no one is born a slave. But over 200 years, there was a group of people enslaved from Africa, and they were enslaved. We use the term enslaved nowadays, but you can be enslaved. So just as I already said that, there were at least between 3 and 4 million people enslaved in this country, mostly, as you well know, in the South. But the issue of owning human beings and abusing them for centuries did not sit well with a lot of Americans. And as a result, America was deeply divided. And as a result of that, as you well know, in 1860, a war broke out. And for the next 4 or 5 years, we had the Civil War. Now, but even before the war, in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued a document that has come to be called the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing enslaved people in the southern states. But a funny thing happened that year. Many enslaved people around the country, not Georgetown, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but many enslaved people around the country for 2.5 years never knew that they were free because no one ever told them. Can you imagine enslaving, working from sun up to sundown for 2.5 years unnecessarily, not getting paid, and no one ever had the decency to say you're free? And if you can't imagine that, imagine having $1 million in the bank for 2.5 years. Well, if you didn't know it was there, it's not going to do you any good. All right? Since then, the state of Texas was the the furthest west of the United States in that time. They took many enslaved people and moved them to the western part of Texas for what they call a refuge, what I call hiding them, because they didn't want to give it up. Now, they did the same thing here in South Carolina. During the Revolutionary War, Georgetown took its documents up. Charleston sent its documents to Georgetown for safekeeping, but it was not safe. During the Civil War, Georgetown sent their documents to Columbia and Camden. But General Sherman had another idea. When he marched from Atlanta, he tore up and burned up everything in sight. The best made plans is sometimes comes out the way God wants it to be. Now, on June the 19th, 1865, a Union general rode into Galveston, Texas, and informed the enslaved people that they were now free. They were so happy that they learned to celebrate with music and song and dance, and they pooled their money together and they purchased for $800 a 10 acres of land, and created a park called Emancipation Park. And they sang spirituals, and we're going to have some of that tonight. Soon the word began to spread around the country that enslaved people were free, and celebrations all over this country was popping up. And 3 years ago, this became a national holiday. Now, lastly, I said I was going to talk about Georgetown. Even before 1865, many blacks in Georgetown had already enjoyed a semblance of freedom because they began to plan for a school and a church. That church was founded in 1863. We now call Bethel AME Church, not just the first church, but the first sanctuary, the first institution of any kind owned and operated and controlled by blacks. And we have the minister of Bethel AME here tonight. That school that was organized in 1863 by Edward Rainey. Who is Edward Rainey? The father of Joseph Haynes Rainey. In my opinion, one of the greatest people that ever lived in Georgetown. Even in 1963, Edward Rainey, who was a free black, and Augusta Carr, who was also a free black, got together with 7 other blacks and decided that they wanted to build the school. They organized in 63. They built the school literally in 1866, and today we know that school as the legendary Howard High School. Thank you.
Everything I ever want to do is educational. I'm taking notes because I'm learning tonight too, and I hope each one of you feel that way. Elsewhere in Georgetown County, a community on the PD River at Plantersville began to see a need to provide summer activities just a few years ago, educational instruction to the Plantersville children. A founding director, Ray Funny, and his wife, Queen Funny, began a grassroots community effort that started as a summer enrichment program and now offers year-round opportunities as an active nonprofit organization. The Village Group and its Plantersville Academy now engages at least 300 students in education, vocations, exercise, and health. Many of you know of the fall bicycle ride. I call it a marathon. Other people call it fun. That bicycle ride in 3 different distances is called the Tour de Plantersville, and many of you have participated and are familiar with it. For over 17 years now, the Village Group has also included music. Here tonight, under the leadership of Mrs. Coretha Great, help me welcome the Village Group Children's Choir from Plantersville, South Carolina.
Good evening. It is indeed an honor and a pleasure to be here this afternoon to share in this program. And right here, I'd like to introduce to you our choir, which is the Village Group PSA Academy Choir. We're going to bring to you 3 selections this afternoon. The first one is entitled Wade in the Water. Wade in the Water is believed to have been sung by Harriet Tubman and other conductors and passengers on the Underground Railroad to signal fugitive slaves how to avoid capture. The song's lyrics instructed slaves to get into the water, walk, which would hide them from the view of prevalent bloodhounds from tracking their scent. The song's chorus includes the lyrics, God's gonna trouble the water. Must be one of the most lit. Our next song, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, is an American slave hymn with multiple interpretations. The first is Escape to Freedom. The song could be about enslaved people who wanted to escape slavery or find freedom from death. The lyrics, swing low, sweet chariot, coming forward to carry me home. It could refer to Elijah, taken to heaven in a chariot in the Old Testament. The song could also be a metaphor for escaping to freedom, such as through the Underground Railroad, which helped enslaved people escape from the South to the North and Canada. The song also represents release from misery. The song could be about death and release from the world's cares and misery, with a band of angels coming to take the singer to heaven. The song's theme of death could remind listeners of the glory that awaits them in heaven, where Christians believe they will transcend suffering and find their final home.
I looked over Jordan and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home. A band of angels coming after me. Coming for to carry me home. Sing low, sweet chariot. Coming for to carry me home. Sing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home. Tell all my friends I'm coming through, coming for to carry me home. Sing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Sing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Our last selection will be Amazing Grace. It's a Christian hymnal written in 1772 by John Newton, and it conveys the message of redemption, forgiveness, and mercy. The song's lyrics describe the joy and peace of a soul that has been saved from despair through God's grace, even after committing terrible sin. The hymn is also considered an autobiographical account of Newton's own experiences, which included participating in the Atlantic slave trade and being a slave ship captain.
Amen.
y'all notice what their shirts said? Juneteenth, breaking chains, every chain since 1865. Imagine the emotion released through music. Imagine the one day a week, if that often, that enslaved people might join in 13 slave chapels up and down the Waccamaw Neck and experience not only time with a minister, perhaps the minister of All Saints Episcopal Church who was white, perhaps their own minister, a leader among their people. Imagine the role that church and especially music played in each one of their lives. And still thinking of music, let's unravel a mystery here on the Waccamaw Neck. Many of you have heard of an African American resort. Others of you have heard of a juke joint. Or many of you have simply seen an old abandoned motel between Pawleys and Litchfield. Tonight that mystery will be explained, better understood by you, who can in turn share the information you learn here tonight. The Magnolia Beach Club began because of the dream of a woman, and Steve Williams is here to share the history of Magnolia Beach Club.
Thank you so much. I don't know where Randy went, but I wanted to sing with the girls. I don't think it's my age, it's just my testosterone. Dr. Betty, my pastor, she knows I like to sing. But we're going to switch from spirituals to gospel to Duke Ellington. All right. As my friend Lee said, if you've passed up and down this highway, and you've probably done it 1,000 times, you've seen the ruins of what was once called Magnolia Beach Club. And after 1954, it was called McKenzie Beach. I'm going to give you a quick synopsis, and I don't know really why Lee asked me to do this, because almost everything I've learned from her. Oh, she's the standard when it comes to history of this Waccamaw Neck. Lillian Golden Pyatt was a savvy businesswoman with a vision. In the 1930s, while most Americans were digging out of the Great Depression, Lillian Golden Pyatt had an idea that would lift her family out of the dark depths of poverty. She was born in 1893. When she was just 16 years old, Lillian left Georgetown to go work in New York City for the daughter of a former rice planter. Although she worked as a domestic, she learned the value of $1, and at an early age, she saved just about every dollar she earned. Like many blacks who had left the South seeking a better life, Lillian never forgot her roots. A first-generation descendant of enslaved people and enslaved owners, she stayed connected to her family in Pawleys Island, visiting whenever she could and paying the family's property taxes. But by 1934, Lily found herself the executor of 17 acres of oceanfront heirs property on South Carolina's Grand Coast. But in 1934, the Grand Strand was not so grand. The condominiums, the pavilions, the golf courses, the high-rises, the hotels, the subdivisions, and the sprawling resorts that we now see as we drive up and down 17, peppering the shoreline of Waccamaw Neck, was not yet built. Still, things were happening, and Lillian Golden Pyatt knew it. Georgetown and Horry County officials were making full use of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt New Deal program, which paved the roads, built the bridges, and developed the infrastructure to support the region's growth. With World War I over, prohibition repealed, and the Great Depression coming at an end, Lillian had a vision. Americans were celebrating again. Famous artists like Count Basie, Charlie Parker, Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Ray Charles, and Lena Horne performed in nearby clubs, mostly in Myrtle Beach. All right, Lillian dreamed of using her property to open a successful beach resort and a restaurant and a motel as a stopover for traveling colored artists performing along the East Coast. By 1935, when Georgetown Lafayette Bridge, that's that big bridge going into Georgetown, became the last link of highway for motorists traveling from New York to Miami, was finally completed, Lillian knew that it was time to move on her dream. She knew that there was a market for motorists traveling along the Highway 17 that were denied access to area motels because of segregation. So she planned to meet their needs. Her restaurant, her motel, and her nightclub would be the only coastal resort between New York and Miami that catered to blacks. And see, this tells me that this predates Charlie's Place, which was in Myrtle Beach. Now, her second challenge was she needed money. Don't we all? Despite the money that she had saved over the years for her dream investment, she did not have enough money for such a large undertaking. Nevertheless, she recognized the need for investors and found two local investors, Dr. Ulysses Teal, Teele, one of the first black doctors to come to Georgetown, and Frank McKenzie, who was from Pawleys Island. Frank McKenzie's wife, along with her two sisters, had inherited 40 acres of land between Highway 17 and Lillian's beachfront property. Soon, he and his wife bought out the remaining heirs of the property. Then, after Lillian pitched her dream of combining their properties with buildings a resort club where colored motorists could visit the beach, enjoy great food, strong dance, and live music. All right, he and Lillian, they struck a deal. Frank would live locally and manage the resort, while Lillian continued to go to New York to raise money for their joint adventure. And the dream began to take shape. In 1936, construction began. Lillian, being a savvy businesswoman now, personally sought out band leaders and invited them to eat free and stay over in her place to exchange a bit of music. Word began to spread quickly that big-name bands like Count Basie, Duke Ellington, take the A train, and Charlie Bird Parker were stopped over to play at her beach club. In the late 1930s, cars and buses routinely stopped along Highway 17, paid 10 cents to cross the footbridge to get into the pavilion cabins, the restaurants, and other resorts buildings. World War II slowed things down somewhat, but the good times picked up right afterwards. Tragedy struck in 1954 when Hurricane Hazel destroyed it, and the government said that some of this property cannot be rebuilt because it's not safe. Afterwards, it became Mackenzie Beach. I was asked who owns it now. There were so many investors, I'm not sure. So I'll leave that up to Lee. I want to leave this with you because this is the last time you'll see me today. But there is an affair going on this Friday at 5 p.m. at Josephine's Rainey Park. I am on that program. Congressman James Clyburn is going to be here as well. We're giving honor where honor is due to Josephine's Rainey. They're putting a plaque there, and Rainey's great-granddaughter is coming. Yes, it's sponsored by the Republican Party, but in my mind, maybe not yours, Josephine's Rainey is greater than his political affiliation, his religious affiliation, his color. What he has done outweighs anything else. And if you want to know about him, because there's a lot of come heres as opposed to been heres, you can go on Gab News and look it up. On one of my articles, it says Rainey to be recognized. We want everybody to come because if you read that article, you know that he helped Native Americans, he helped Asian Americans, Black Americans, and even ex-Confederates. So let's not play him cheap. Let's celebrate somebody. All right, thank you.
If you you are on social media, you may already follow Steve Williams, and I encourage you to do so weekly with his columns. And then also, Betty Dees Clark also creates a column on Facebook, and it's through Gab News. So be sure to friend Gab News, to follow it, and to read those articles, because there will be a quiz the next time we are together. As Steve said, the beach resort could not last forever. Big names came and stayed. Many of them were performing at the Ocean Forest Hotel until the 1960s and 70s. The Ocean Forest was demolished. Many of you that are beigneurs remember not only the employment of a wide range of people, but also the idea that the ballroom, the orchestras, the off-Broadway summer stock theater that performed there was a great deal of entertainment, and never was the entertainment so important on what the Chamber of Commerce named the Grand Strand. But remember the division that remained between the black and the white populations. Where could they stay, and then where might they perform for their own people? Think also, as we try to imagine the music at Magnolia Beach Club, let's listen to more guest musicians, jazz entertainers, Jesse Wilson and Della Prelo. Jesse Wilson and friends have performed widely for audiences, and I first met him when I served on the board of CAHO, the Committee for African American Historical Observances. In the 1990s, I met him and was blown away by Jesse Wilson and friends, knowing he and Della Prelo would perform together tonight. I knew that you would love them both. Della and I have been a part of Indigo Choral Society. Many of you have already heard Della singing on the 4th of July especially, or 2 other concerts throughout the year by Indigo Choral Society. She, as a singer, is involved with the Choral Society. I am involved only as a narrator. You don't want me to sing. But imagine my delight as I prepared to introduce her tonight to discover that she got her master's at Columbia College, my alma mater, and tonight you have Columbia College koalas in the corner hollering for you. There are 5 graduates of Columbia College, at least 3 of them all music majors, that will certainly be paying attention. They've traveled to be here and listen to the jazz music of Jesse Wilson and Della Prelo, all to honor Magnolia Beach Club's heyday, as Steve said, in the 30s and in the 40s, celebrated by the Pawleys Island Festival of Music and Art, and each one of you. Della.
Good afternoon. We are going to begin with Ain't Nobody's Business If I Do. And that was composed in 1922. And although it's been recorded by various artists, it's most memorable to me, recorded by Billie Holiday. Notion to jump into the ocean. Ain't nobody's business if I do. Well, if I go to church on Sunday, then cabaret all day Monday. Ain't nobody's business if I do. That's my pastor. Well, if my man ain't got no money, and I say takes all of my honey, ain't nobody I would rather my man would hit me than for him to jump up and quit me. That's not true. Ain't nobody's business if I do. Oh, I swear that I will call no copper if I'm beat up by my papa. That's not true either. Ain't nobody's business if I do. Well, it ain't nobody's business if I do. Ain't nobody's business if I do. Well, it ain't nobody's business if I do. Well, it ain't nobody's business if I do. Ain't nobody's business if I do. Ain't nobody's business if I do. Thank you. The next song that we're going to do is called Misty. And it was written by Earl Gardner as an instrumental. And it was recorded by various vocalists such as Sarah Vaughan and my favorite, Ella Fitzgerald. Look at me. I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree. And I feel like I'm clinging to a cloud. I can't understand. I get misty just holding your hand. Walk my way. And 1,000 violins begin to play. Oh, it may be the sound of your hello, the music I hear. I get misty the moment you're near. Can't you see that you're leading me on? And it's just what I want you to do. Don't you notice how helplessly I'm lost? That's why I'm following you. On my own. As I wander through this wonderland alone. Never knowing my right foot from my left, my hat from my glove. I'm too misty and too much in love. Can't you see that you lead me on? And in love to this sea and too much in love. Thank you. Our next song is What a Difference a Day Makes. And this was originally written in Spanish and recorded in Spanish. And later on, the lyrics were translated to English, and it has been performed by various vocalists and most popularized, in my opinion, by Dinah Washington. What a difference a day made. 24 little hours brought the sun and the flowers where there used to be rain. My yesterday was blue, dear. Today I'm a part of you, dear. My lonely nights are through, dear. Since you said you were mine, what a difference a day makes. There's a rainbow before me. Skies above can be stormy. Since that moment of bliss, that thrilling kiss is heaven when you find romance on the menu. What a difference a day makes, and that difference is you. What a difference a day makes. There's a rainbow before me. Skies above can be stormy. Since that moment of bliss, a thrilling kiss is heaven when you find romance on the menu. What a difference a day the difference is you. What a difference a day made. And the difference is you. Is you. Thank you.
Dinah Washington, Billie Holiday, or was it Della Prelo? It just is extraordinary to be at this site, at this church, with these people, listening and learning. I think about what brought us together tonight, what we so often call Mackenzie Beach, and I wanted you to know that if you're not out there taking notes, you might run to my sister's books one day and pick up a book written by a person who lived here, who lived and spent time at Mackenzie Beach. And I'm going to read a few pages from the book itself, written by Johnny Ford. Written by Johnny Ford and told to Ron Days. Many of you know Ron Days through Brook Green Gardens. And also this book, available for sale and newly published by Class Publishing, illustrated by Natalie Days. Now, since we're not at daycare or at the Plantersville Cultural Center or elementary school, I can't sit in a circle with you. I can't sit in a circle and show you all the illustrations. You need to get the book. And you know what? The book is also at the Waccamaw Branch Library. But listen carefully as I tell a story as best I can. It's a name of sunshine, of rolling waves and happy memories. When I hear it, I smile as wide as a cook who's ready to remove enough golden brown catfish from the frying pan to fill a platter full. The name is Mackenzie Beach. And although the formal name is Mackenzie's Beach, all who spoke Geechee talk, well, they just dropped the apostrophe and the S. This meant that it was the beach that Mr. Frank Mackenzie owned. Saying that name quickly 4 times back to back makes me snap my fingers, makes me sing rhythmically and sway my head and my shoulders from side to side. Mackenzie Beach, Mackenzie Beach, Mackenzie Beach, Mackenzie Beach. You see, good food, jamming music, and skillful moves in the water and on the dance floor made Mackenzie Beach an unforgettable place. Now, this wasn't just any kind of beach. It was called the Black Beach. Well, this confused me when I was real little. The sand was white and shiny. It wasn't brown. It wasn't black. It was grayish blue, and certainly not all black. But when I got older, I realized it was called a black beach because it was a place along the big Atlantic Ocean where black people could gather and swim. The white beach was miles away in Myrtle Beach or down the road at Pawleys Island, where only a uniformed black nanny could be on the beach legally. During the early 1950s, when I was about 9 years old, black and white people had to swim in separate areas. That's right, even though the ocean's waters never separated and ebbed and flowed to both areas. But I loved Mackenzie Beach. It stretched from Highway 17 in Pawleys Island, South Carolina, all the way to the ocean front. One summer, I left with my mom and grandfather from our home on the west side of Highway 17 to stay at the Mackenzie Beach Motel. They would be the summertime chefs. I remember arriving with our suitcases. After Ma drove down the dirt road that led to the beach, she parked the car in the uneven parking lot. Grandpa started unloading our belongings. I saw a group of children. gathered around a man dressed in white with a white apron tied around his waist and wearing a nice-looking summer hat. And that man was Mr. Mackenzie. I stepped closer to watch. The kids were excited and having lots of fun. Some jumped double dutch, and the man clapped his hands as the kids sang a gullah tune. When I looked around, my folks were way ahead of me. They were already on the footbridge. I ran along quickly to catch up with them. Maybe I can't jump like those kids, I told myself, but I bet none can run as fast as I can. I had visited my most favorite place in the world a couple of times before, but had never stayed there for the whole summer. My eyes looked this way and that way to see if there was anything new. I had no way of knowing at that time that this summer would bring two surprises that would never have crossed my mind. Before seeing the kids playing, we'd already passed the large blue house sitting over the marsh that always caught my attention. It was bigger than any house I'd ever seen before, and it was owned by Mr. Manigault, a black man. How about that? The wooden footbridge was just beyond the parking lot, the same as always. It was sturdy, about 10 feet wide. It stretched across the creeks and the marsh, and at high tide it sat just above the water. After guests had stopped at a small booth and had paid 10 cents or 15 cents to cross over, they would not have minded if that bridge had been made of goat horns, or if trolls or platt-eyes had lived below it. All who crossed it were on their way to a beach that had no rival. It was beautiful. Everybody anticipated excitement as they approached the beach itself. The Mackenzie Beach Motel, the dining room, and the pavilion lined the beach front. The most popular was the pavilion. It was the main attraction because of the game rooms, the live bands, the dancing, and the eating. It had a spacious dance floor, a bandstand, lots of tables and chairs, and a bar that stretched from one wall to another. Of course, I couldn't go near the dance area or where adult drinks were being served, but when the evening crowd spilled outside, I watched teens and adults doing the swing. Dancers boogie-woogied around and tossed partners over their heads and around their waist. This was the place where black people from all over had a real good time. Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Count Basie, and many other great singers and musicians performed there. Ma and Grandpa prepared and cooked all kinds of foods for beachgoers. I spent much of my time in the kitchen of the pavilion watching them create food dishes that made vacationers happy about everything they were served. My favorites were the breakfast pancakes and pork sausage. Popular with guests, popular was the down-home good-eating dishes. You know, things like collard greens, rice and beans, fried chicken, smothered pork chops, cornbread, and sweet potatoes. Never received a single complaint. I thought Mackenzie Beach was paradise. The dining room was a concrete block building covered with plaster and painted white with pink trimming. It looked like a Spanish villa. Its glossy red tiled floor reflected the lights from a huge chandelier hanging in the ceiling. The lighting also showed a glass display case that was filled with the most beautiful and tasty pies and cakes in the world. Everyone knew it was time to eat when the saltwater breezes filled with aromas of traditional southern foods. The third building, the motel, had 24 rooms. It was built in a rectangular shape with a courtyard in the center. Large beach chairs and tables with umbrellas made guests feel relaxed, made them feel treated to luxury. One day, my friends and I walked across the bridge to the snack shack located across from the ticket booth. We saw Mr. Frank talking to a girl about 16 years old. He smiled and he winked at me and he said, "Boys, always remember to do what's right." I paused to watch this confrontation. Mr. Frank was a handsome, slender, light-skinned man. He greeted all guests with a smile and with both hands tucked into the pockets of his white apron he wore. The coins he'd collected from admission jingled as he walked. Too bad the girl had known that Mr. Frank had the eyes of an eagle. Nothing, I mean nothing, got past him. "You need to learn to respect your elders, young lady," he told her, speaking softly but sternly. "Don't ever let me see you trying to rob someone of what they're due ever again in this life. When you pay the fee, I'll forget about the incident, and you can go on across and have a wonderful time. What do you say to that?" Mr. Frank began to escort the girl down the bridge to the parking area. She seemed embarrassed. Apparently she had attempted to cross the bridge without paying admission, and Mr. Frank was not having that. Back at the booth, she reached into her pants pocket, pulled out some change. She dropped the money into Mr. Frank's hands and then started back up the bridge. When she passed me, she looked me straight in the eye and she whispered, "Your daddy must have eyes in the back of his head." "Daddy? What are you talking about?" "This book is for children and adults." "Because," I said, "that man ain't my daddy." "Boy, everybody knows that's your daddy," she said. "But true, don't you know that's your pa?" "Mm-hmm." Until that moment, I had never heard that story, and I kept the rumor to myself for years. Kids weren't allowed to talk with adults about such matters at that time unless an adult spoke about it first. Well, since then, when I reached adulthood, Mr. Frank pulled me aside and said, "Boy, you know you can call me Pops." Since then, the memories of the once thriving Mackenzie Beach became something that I do want everyone to know about. It's true, so try it. Say the name quickly 4 times, back to back, and see if it makes you snap your fingers and sing rhythmically and sway your head and shoulders from side to side. Mackenzie Beach, Mackenzie Beach, Mackenzie Beach, Mackenzie Beach. It's the name of sunshine, of rolling waves, and happy memories. Memories of Billie Holiday and Dinah Washington are coming right back, right now, with more music from Jesse Wilson and his friend Della Prelo.
This song is called Embraceable You. And it was written by George and Ira Gershwin and introduced, although introduced previously, my favorite is Ella Fitzgerald. And she recorded it in 1944. Embrace me, my sweet embraceable you. Embrace me, you irreplaceable you. Just one look at you, my heart broke tipsy in me. You and you alone bring out the gypsy in me. I love all the many charms about you. Above all, I want my arms about you. Don't be a naughty baby. Come to mama, do. My sweet embraceable embrace me, my sweet embrace of you. Embrace me, you irreplaceable you. Just one look at you, my heart grows tipsy in me. You and you alone bring out the gypsy in me. I love all the many charms about you. Above all, I want my arms about you. Don't be a naughty baby. Come to mama, do. My sweet embraceable, my sweet embraceable, my sweet embraceable you. Thank you. The next song that we're going to do is called Nature Boy. Nature Boy was composed in 1948, and many artists have recorded it. George Benson, Nat King Cole. Nat King Cole had a hit for #1 hit for 8 weeks with this song. And this is one of my favorite songs that he has done. And I actually did not hear it until I became an adult. But this has become one of my favorite songs. Was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. Say he wandered very far, over land and sea. Little shy, sad of eye, but very wise was he. And then one day, a magic day, he passed my way. While he spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing ever learned is just to love and be loved in return. tragic day he passed my way. While he spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing you ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. Greatest thing you will ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. Be loved in return. Be loved in return. Thank you. That was for Lee. The next song that we will do is All of Me. And this was written in 1931, and it was recorded by various orchestras, various vocalists, such as Billie Holiday, and you know by now my favorite, Ella Fitzgerald. All of me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I want to lose them. Take my arms, I'll never use them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on without you? You took the part that once was my heart. So why not take all of me? Well, all of me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I want to lose them. Oh, take my arms, I'll never use them. Oh, your goodbye
for coming. We counted, I think we had like 275 people here. We didn't know what to expect. So if you've enjoyed this program, please email me at Susan@Polly's Music or call the office and just tell us what you liked about it and you'd like to see us do things more like this. And I just want to thank Lee Brockington, Steve Williams. What a great job you did, and just telling the story and teaching us all about the history of our area. The Village Group Choir, those children had to get back, and they had a long drive, so we set them off with cookies and lemonade. But gosh, didn't they do a great job? They really did. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the festival while I have you here. Most of you I know, a lot of you I don't, but we have a festival for 3 weeks every October. This is our 34th year. If you aren't familiar with us, please come see me and I will give you a flyer. But we do 8 concerts. We have a wine and food gala. The concerts this year are Harold Melvin's Blue Notes, a Rick Lindy's tribute to Roy Orbison, if you like Roy Orbison music. We have a Fleetwood Mac Rumors tribute. We have Bella Fleck and Abigail Washburn, which is Americana, a little bit of bluegrass. We have the Barricade Boys, which is a Broadway group. We have Groovin' on Tour, which is our tabled event. We have Runaway June, which is country. I mean, we try to hit every genre. We also do a series in February that a lot of people don't know about, and we have it at the Village House, and it's for 3 weeks. We have one different performer each week, and that's usually where we do our classical and our jazz groups. So keep in touch with me and look on our website, which is pollysmusic.com, so that you'll know what's going on. We have a lot of different things happening, and we're looking forward to this coming year, and we may be adding more things. And so thank you very much for coming tonight. We're going to have Miss Betty come up and say a closing prayer, and after the prayer, then I think Jesse and Della might play us one more song if we clap really loud. Okay. Thank you again, and here's Miss Betty. Reverend Betty. I'm going to call her Miss Betty.
It's been my pleasure to spend this time with you, but I must say before I pray that to see us to just come together and enjoy the moment, no politics, just fun. Just fun. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for allowing us to come together and to enjoy this time of fun, fellowship, and food. Bless our going, O God, and keep us in the palm of your hand. And may we forever love one another. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
You may stand up, stretch, and think about going home. We thank you so much. Susan said it all, and then with that closing prayer, isn't it time to take this music in our hearts, to take this love in our minds, and to leave this place but not forget this time? I think this might just be the most favorite thing I've ever done since I moved to Pawleys Island. Thank y'all. Thank y'all all very much, our performers and all that shared in this evening together at Holy Cross Faith Memorial Church. Good night. Good night.
I'm up. Thank you, Chair. We're going to close out with What a Wonderful World. And this song was intended to be a message of hope during a time of turmoil in the United States. And it was recorded by Louis Armstrong.